Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So today I have a very special match for you guys today. This is obviously for Swords non-meta tournament number 2, round number 2, match number 1 of the round. And I will be doing a second feature match for this round later in 2 days. Obviously, it'll be uploaded like I've been doing in the past. So if you are unfamiliar with non-meta tournaments, a tournament with like following its own ban list, you can basically read more info and do all of that stuff by either joining the description below or by watching like the sign up video, and it'll give you a better idea of what is going on. Anyways, today we have a very special match because up at the top we have How or Toshiro69 playing Zoodiac, and down at the bottom we have Hexagon7 playing a very interesting deck. Heretics, but really realistically, it's Hungry Burger Turbo, so very interesting. So he was on... Okay, never mind. I think we are all good to go from here. So, it looks like Hal's going to start off first and start off with a Zoodiac Thoroughblade, using it to discard the Ram and draw a card. And it looks like he's drawing into a Pankratops and he has a Ghost Ogre in hand, so this is pretty interesting. He can overlay into a Board Bow, then a Chaka-9, use the Chaka-9 to detach and special summon the Ram back to the field, then overlay a Dryden on top. He's going to use Dryden's effect to pop the Ram, and then the Ram's going to be special summoning the Chalk back to the field. Next, he can overlay the Tiger, and then use it to detach material and reattach material to the Chaka-9, and since this Chaka-9 is a new one, he can actually use the effect since it is not a once per turn, or at least a hard once per turn effect. It's a once per turn per summon, per like face up copy. So he can actually just use this Chaka-9 to detach and special backup material back from the grave. So he's going to bring back a Board Bow, it looks like. And then I think here he can just link everything off into a Infinite Track Fortress Megaclops, which is basically like impossible for a lot of decks to out. But he's going to pass his turn on just a Megaclops, which is really interesting. Nothing really else following it up, but that's okay. And it looks like Hexagon is going to start off with a 10 Fnuit, so I'm a little unfamiliar with these, but I do know that when they are tributed, they get some sort of effect. I think they all have the same effect to summon a Dragon normal monster from the Hender deck and make its attack and defense 0. I think that all of the Heretics have this effect. If I'm wrong on that, you can, put in the comments. But it looks like if your opponent controls a monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. So it's essentially a Cyber Dragon, and it can't attack during the same turn. Especially it has the same stats as Cyber Dragon, which is kind of funny. So he's going to be tributing it for a Sue, which you can special summon it from your hand by tributing a Heretic monster. And it looks like you can tribute a Heretic monster except itself, and then target a spell trap your opponent controls and destroy it. So it looks like we're probably not going to be seeing this effect, as there are no spells or traps on the field. And it looks like the 10 Fnuit is probably going to be triggering here. And then it is going to be special summoning Labradite Dragon, which is a tuner. And this is actually really interesting that it's a tuner, because it does quite a bit of stuff for the deck. Because if you think about it, you can either, obviously, you could just overlay into a rank 6, which is probably what he's going to be doing here because of Megaclops' effect, because it's unaffected by everything except for Xyz monsters, so if you make an Xyz monster, you can definitely get over this. But the really interesting thing is that you can actually make Ultimate to Zolkin, because you'll have to have 2 monsters with the same level, and one of them has to be a tuner, and then if you set a card, you can just special summon a tuner or a synchro from your extra deck, which I think would be really cool to see, but I don't think he's going to be doing that. Looks like Hamburger Recipe is going to be coming down here, and he's going to be tributing the Sue to a special summon Hungry Burger. And next, Sue's effect is going to be triggering here, and I believe he's going to be getting into a copy of Wattail Dragon, which is a non-tuner, which, I mean, this could be a pretty good access into it, since also Hungry Burger is a level 6, which is really interesting. That extra synergy for this deck, pretty crazy. So he's going to be overlaying into a copy of Utopia Beyond, which is really cool because when it's XC summoned, it makes everything on your opponent's field 0. So this used to be used in like an Odd Eyes deck forever ago. You used to make this and then make everything in your opponent's field 0. And then if you had an Odd Eyes like Pendulum Dragon, you can attack for game because it's 25 and then it does double damage. So it's 5,000 and then 3,000 for game. So it was a really cool OTK way back in the day, probably about like 4 years ago or so, but I don't think it's going to be used for the same reason here. Obviously, it's just going to be setting this Megaclops to 0. And then, obviously, it's probably going to be using the Utopia Beyond to just swing over the Megaclops. That is the assumption here. But it looks like Ghost Ogre is going to be coming down and hitting the Utopia Beyond, so it's still going to be resolving. So it's still going to be putting this Megaclops to a 0 attack, but it's not going to be able to be destroyed by battle because its effects aren't negated. So this Hungry Burger is just going to go in and swing for 2,000 damage here, which is pretty interesting. He just chomps on it. So, he passes his turn, and it looks like Hal draws into a DD Crow for turn. Man, all these hand traps, that's actually really crazy at how many hand traps he actually has in his hand. There's, well, he had 3. He had 3 this whole game, pretty much. I mean, if you're counting Pankratops as a hand trap, but interesting. Anyways, he's going to be using the Megaclops to take the Hungry Burger and put a Trident over it. So that's actually kind of funny. I don't know if Trident was the best choice there. I guess it might be, but I feel like Chalkanine could have been a really good option there too. But I mean, there is only one Trident in the game right now, so I definitely do not fault him for that. Ratpier is going to be sending Bunny Blast to the grave, which is a really interesting choice. And then Ratpier's going to be overlaid for a Chalkanine, and this Chalkanine is, I believe, going to be getting back the Bunny Blast, I assume. So we'll see here in a second. Yep, looks like Bunny Blast is going to be coming back to the field, which I think is a really interesting choice that he actually opted to go for. I'm not sure if I like 100% agree with Bunny Blast. I think it's like an okay card, but I mean, it is spell protection, which is kind of cool. Tiger Mortar is going to be coming over the Chalkanine and detaching the Chalkanine to reattach the Ram onto the Trident. And so the Trident's going to have some pretty good stats here. Then he can link off the Tiger and the Infinitrack Fortress Megaclops into an Unchained Abomination. So this is actually really cool because obviously the Megaclops was pretty low, I guess. It didn't really do a whole lot. And he's going to go in and swing for 3,000. Actually should be 15. Looks like, yep, they did catch the 15 because of Megaclops' effect. It halves the damage for the rest of the turn. So looks like Hexagon is going to be going for his turn and using Preparation of Rites to search out a copy of Hungry Burger, as well as grabbing a hamburger recipe from the grave to the hand. And then he can use the Hungry Burger recipe to tribute the Tefnuit in his hand, and then special summon a Hungry Burger. And he can use Tefnuit to special summon it from his hand or grave, I believe. Hand, deck, or grave, which is actually really interesting. Also, a really cool thing about these heretics is that it does say when, so they don't miss timing though, because it's not optional. It is mandatory to summon a dragon normal monster from your deck, which is really interesting. So they are definitely mandatory. They will always trigger. So he's going to be summoning Galaxy Serpent here, which I think is really cool because I think he can go into a copy of Scarlight, which could just essentially break the entire board right now. But I think that the Trident's going to be coming down, detaching the Hungry Burger, popping the Hungry Burger, and this Abomination can go ahead and trigger and pop the Galaxy Serpent. So he's pretty much left with no resources. He has to pass his turn. Abomination's going to trigger in the end phase to destroy a card on the field, which will destroy the Bunny Blast, and then the Bunny Blast can trigger and add Thoroughblade back to the hand. He draws for turn, drawing into Solemn Strike, and at this point, Thoroughblade's going to come down, discarding the Whiptail, switch everything to attack, overlay a Borbo, overlay a Chalkanine. Chalkanine's effect's going to come down and special summon Bunny Blast back from the grave, and then a Tiger Mortar is going to come on top. Tiger Mortar detaching and then reattaching a Whiptail, I believe, to the Trident here. And that's 3,000 damage. And then it's going to be 16, 8, and I believe 20, or no, 16. So I'm pretty sure it's game there. All right, moving on into game number 2. It looks like Hexagon's going to be opting to go second, which is really interesting. And he draws a Nibiru. So this card is pretty crazy, and obviously, and I think especially in these tournaments where the decks are less powerful than you'd think. So Solemn Strike's going to be set, and then he's going to be going ahead and normal summoning a Ram and overlaying into a Borbo, then a Chalkanine, then a Tiger, then a Trident, not playing through or around the Nibiru at all. I think that was a very big misplay on his part. And this token's going to be summoned in attack mode with 0 attack because the Zoodiacs do have a 0 stat. Original attack is 0. He's going to be normal summoning Esset, which will change its attack to 1,000. And then he's going to be a relief tributing it for a Sue in his hand. Or no. Nebhet, it looks like. Nebthet. They're little weird names. And then it's going to be triggering its effect to summon a Galaxy Serpent from the deck. And then you can go into the battle phase and then attack over for 2,000 and then 3,000. It's really interesting. This is at level 5, so we could actually make Dragster in this main phase 2, which I think is what he does. Oh no, he's going to be just going into a Heretic Seal, which I guess is probably better. Just being able to bounce whatever how opts to normal summon for his turn, then he can't get into like his Zoo Engine. So I think that is a smart play on his part. For turn, he draws Pot of Avarice, which is pretty broken. Just being able to use that to just put all of the zoos back. So man, I guess maybe the Nibiru like helped him a little bit because it put everything in the grave. So maybe just a little. Draws into Prohibition, calling Hungry Burger. Oh no, it's so sad. And he also has a Solemn Strike, which is actually insane. So it looks like Ramram's going to be coming down here, and that's going to be hit with a Heavenly Spheres, tributing from the hand, tributing Tefnuit, and that's going to be hit with a Solemn Strike that was set on the field from the previous turn, bringing his life points down to just 1,500. This Heretic Spheres is going to be destroying itself, which is a little unfortunate. And then it's going to be triggering the effect of Tefnuit because it still was tributed as cost, and he can still special summon Galaxy Serpent from the graveyard. So Ramram's going to go here, and he's just going to swing over the Galaxy Serpent since its attack and defense are both at 0. He can set a copy of Strike and then overlay a Choconite and a Tiger Mortar, and then a Dryden on top of that. Obviously playing around the Nibiru only for 4 summons this time, and then using the Dryden, detaching the Choconite to pop the Nibiru. Moving on into his turn, he's going to activate Raigeki to destroy it, and then he's going to be normal summoning Heretic Dragon, which will make its attack 1,000, and then he's going to be going into battle phase and attacking. And I think How definitely misplayed here because he opts to just scoop, thinking that its attack is stayed at 1,900, but it definitely is not. He would only take the 500 damage. But I mean, he didn't really have that great of a hand either, so I guess like possibly if he didn't draw anything good for his next turn, he would have possibly still lost anyways. So moving on into game number 3, How's going to be opting to go first. He draws into a copy of a card that pretty much ends this game, unfortunately, Mask of Restrict, but we do have a couple of outs here, so we're going to see how this game plays. Normal summoning Whiptail, he can go ahead and overlay into Borbo, then a Choconine, and then a Tiger and a Dryden, and that's 5 materials. And there is no Nibiru, which is pretty crazy that he just played into that, which I think was definitely a misplay on his part. But, I mean, at the same time, the Pot of Avarice could definitely come clutch on the next turn. So, Mask of Restrict is going to be activated here in the in the standby phase or draw phase. Which is crazy, just the biggest floodgate ever. And he's just going to be opting to use Infinite Impermanence on the Dryden here, which I think is very questionable, because you could just special the Pankratops and Tribute to pop the Master of Restrict, and then start playing maybe through the Impermanence, like if he doesn't have an out. But he's just going to be going ahead and normal summoning into for a Manju, searching the hamburger recipe. And then he can go ahead and go into battle phase and attack over the Dryden. And then attack for 26. And then in the main phase 2, he's going to be tributing Pankratops to pop the Master Restrict, which is going to be hit with a Solemn Strike. So that's bringing Toshiro down to 3,900 life points. His hand isn't that great, except this Avarice can basically reset the game for him. So I think that's pretty crazy. Right now, Hexagon's unfortunately essentially on Manju Beatdown, which is a little unfortunate. I definitely think that imperming the Dryden was kind of a weird option there, because he could have just normaled the Manju and then like or maybe just like the Pankratops and attacked over and then like saved it for later. Especially because if your Pankratops fails, like in this case, if he had a strike, you could set the Imprim in the column as Mask of Restrict, and then on the next turn you can actually just like negate the Trident or you know, whatever, and then negates the Mask of Restrict because it's in the column, and then you're free to play for your turn. So I definitely think that he had 2 outs and one of them got negated and he used the other one on something else, and I think that that was definitely something he probably shouldn't have done. But I mean, hindsight 2020, realistically, he didn't know the situation he was put in. But Iris is going to get him into a Judgment and a Tenki, and this Judgment's insane because it's essentially sealing the deal here, right? Like, if Mask of Restrict is somehow able to be outed, you could just negate it with Judgment. So I think that's pretty broken. Tenki's going to search for Ratpier. Ratpier is going to bring down Ram. He can overlay into Chakanite, and he is on the Brotherhood of the Fire Fist engine, so he's playing Eagle in the extra deck. It'll be very interesting if we see that come down here. So Chakanite is going to bring back the Ram, and then he can use the Trident to pop the Ram and bring back the Chakanite here. Then the Tiger Mortar is going to be summoned over that. Detach to reattach into, I assume, the Chakanite here. And then he can go ahead and detach for Chakanite to bring back Trident. And this is where you would normally make the Link 2, although there's not really a whole lot he can do with that. I guess he could make maybe Unchained Abomination, but I think instead he's just going to be opting to go into a Make Clops here, which will take the Manju, and then at this point it's pretty much game over realistically. Getting Trident here, and then attacking for 2,000 points of damage. He has basically 2 forms of interruption, as well as just a floodgate on the field. Mask of Restrict, which is really interesting. It was a very, very good side deck choice by Hao here. Picking this Master Restrict, I think, was fantastic, and it just so happened that he played against a deck that only tributes, basically. So, yeah, so Galaxy Serpent's going to be set face down, Called by the Grave set as well, passing his turn, and that's pretty much it, right? A little unfortunate. Megaclops is going to be activated here, and the target wasn't specified, but it is cleared up here that he does want to target the Tiger Mortar for some reason. He assumed he was targeting the Chakanine, so he was going to say that. But he did bring back the Chakanine, or the Tiger, which was a little bit odd. He said, oh wait, that was the target, and then he changed it because, I mean, the target wasn't specified, so the target needs to be specified before the Call by the Grave is activated, so we're just clearing up the game state here. Alright, then the Megaclops is going to be attacking over the Galaxy Serpent, and then passing his turn, I assume, to the opponent. Oh, he's just going to be overlaying a Trident on top of the Chakanine over the Trident, and then using the Chakanine to special back the Trident to the field. Then a Tiger Mortar is going to be summoned here, which is going to be detaching the Chakanine to attach a Trident. Or no, looks like he's just going to be attaching it to Tiger, which is actually a really interesting option here. Oh no, the Tiger actually detaches and negates, sorry. The Tiger was negated because of Call by the Grave. That's what happened. I completely forgot about that. Drawing into Evenly Matched, this is insane. Moving into battle phase, I believe here, or no, he's going to activate Preparation of Rites to add a Hungry Burger. And then going into battle phase, he can go ahead and end the battle phase and activate Evenly Matched, but unfortunately, Solemn Judgment's going to be coming down here. Like I said earlier, it was in the game, or in his, he drew it to basically at the Master Restrict. It would have been crazy to see that resolve. Pretty much he probably would have banished everything except for like a Megaclops or something. And then that would have been really cool because then this hamburger recipe would have been really important here. Or maybe he would have kept Master Restrict, I don't know. We might not ever know, you know. It's going to be normal summoned here, making its original attack 1,000, and passing his turn, because you can't set these monsters because you'd have to tribute for it since it's a level 5. Prohibition is just the extra nail in the coffin, calling Burger, just absolutely destroying him. Unfortunate. Megaclops is going to be grabbing this back row, which is just Hungry Hamburger Recipe, and yep, just going to be using it to detach for the Chakanine effect to bring back Ram. And then here we can go ahead and use the Tiger to, I assume, reattach this, the Chakanine to the Trident, linking off into Brotherhood of the Fire Fist Eagle, which can send the copy from his deck to the grave, and then since he controls the Tenki, he can just, you know, special summon it back. And then he can go ahead and link off into an Unchained Abomination using the Tenki, which can grab a Whiptail from the deck. And then he's going to switch everything into attack mode, Trident on the 100 attack. Actually, he can make it 13, but I don't think it matters either way. Hitting for 45, which I think is right. Yep, because the damage is halved. And then Abomination's going to be hitting for another 1500. Then the Whiptail on the Trident, and that's going to be 650. Yep, 650 points of damage. And passing his turn to his opponent, he draws Hieratic Seal of Convocation, which can search any Hieratic, but that's not really going to do a whole lot here. So he's just going to be scooping up the game. And that's going to do it for this round, a very interesting one. Hao takes it 2-1, which is really interesting. I think he could have definitely maybe taken it 2-0 if he would have didn't scoop the game number 2 a little early. But with all of that said, that was a pretty interesting match, and Hungry Burger is a very, very interesting deck, and I congratulate him for playing something that is very, very unique and not something that's like a meta deck like Hao. But I mean, Hao did a very good job on his own by himself, So with all of that said, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next match.